Let's get into a price prediction with AMC stock for this week. Now, this week is going to be one of the most exciting weeks for meme stocks, if that's what you want to call them, in general, with AMC stock and GME stock specifically, because GME is going to be reporting earnings. Now, GME earnings have big implications for AMC as well. We're going to look at AMC's short interest data and also GME short interest data, some of the technicals, some of the major events this week that could move the markets and AMC and GME up or down, and where I ultimately think these stocks could go in a best case, base case, and worst case scenario. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into all of this information. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. Number one thing I want to say right off the bat of this video: I'm not a financial advisor. I know you guys seen that one coming. No, seriously though, I'm not a financial advisor. Come to your own conclusions, all of that. Do your own research and due diligence. That's not actually what I plan to say in the beginning of this video though. What I plan to say is the biggest catalyst with AMC, besides GME earnings, besides anything that happens in the markets or fundamentally happens with AMC, it's the court date. And the court date is tentatively scheduled for June 29th or June 30th. Now, we don't know for sure when we're going to get the next update from the courts. In theory, if they wanted to wrap up this court date by June 30th or June 29th, you would get some kind of news about that beforehand. You would get basically an agreement to the settlement. You would get some kind of paperwork being filed. You would get something. And I think an update to that could come at literally any time. So whatever that says is really going to drive AMC stock, whether it happens on Monday or 2 Mondays from now or 3 Mondays from now or any time between now and then. If it comes out this week, forget GME earnings, forget what's happening in the markets, forget anything else. AMC is going to react based off of that. So that's number one. And that makes these price prediction videos hard. Even if everything looks a certain way, you just never know when that catalyst is going to come out. It's like a really good thing or a really bad thing, just depending on what happens. So take that into your kind of judgment and consideration when you're thinking about AMC or some of the trades that you might make on both of these stocks for this upcoming week. Now, GME earnings, that's going to really be the big catalyst for these two names, minus anything that comes out from the courts. I don't expect it to. It might be the week before or 2 weeks before. You're in the first week of June. It doesn't have to come out this week. And that is any update from the courts. Now, GME earnings. GME reported a profit last quarter of about $48 million, a net profit. That was the first time in over 2 years. The stock went up 35%, rightfully so. And then basically after that, the stock kind of trended down, and you actually fell quite a bit before you started a recent recovery. Now, the recent recovery in GME stock signals to me that you're probably going to get good earnings. Now, I think just algorithmically speaking, the algorithms are really going to buy up GME stock if there is a net profit or a break even or something close to that. Maybe if they lose a little bit of money too, markets won't care too much. And really just based off what I'm saying, it looks like that's going to be the case. Sometimes you can kind of get an inclination of kind of what's going to happen with earnings based off of how a stock reacts before earnings. If a stock sells off into earnings, a lot of the time the earnings report is going to be negative. If a stock rallies in earnings, a lot of the time the report's going to be positive. And this would indicate a potential positive report coming. GME on a technical basis is above the 200-day moving average beautifully. I mean, you're not even testing that. You're like solidly above that 200-day moving average. You're above your shorter term moving averages, your 50, your 100-day moving average. And you are basically above the close that you've seen on their last earnings, which rallied the stock 35.24%. On the day of earnings, that was March 22nd, GME stock closed out that day at $23.87 per share. GME stock is $24.61 per share. This is incredibly strong, what you are seeing from the technicals. GME has also been close to overbought on the RSI for a while now, and that's usually indicative of a stronger rally to come. GME on the RSI is 65.51. On the MACD, GME is starting to get, a little more bullish, but comparatively to what we've seen in the history with GME, there's a lot more work to do. You could go a lot higher before these factors like the RSI or the MACD would turn into negatives. Now, if we look at AMC on a technical basis, AMC is not really pricing in good things. And we talked about this in the last video. But you're really not priced for good news. And I think that's what makes this week interesting for AMC, which could give you a larger move than not to the upside. Because look at the chart. It's been basically straight down ever since you hit that high back here on May 5th of $6.11 per share. You've basically been falling ever since. You're at $4.59 right now. There is a lot of room to make an upside move, just to be at a neutral place really over the last couple of months. So there could definitely be some upside here, and we'll talk about that in just one moment. The RSI is currently trading near oversold levels at 34.81. Technical oversold is 30. And the MACD, kind of neutral, slightly bearish. That's the way that I would describe the MACD right now. Biggest thing that's been happening with AMC stock is a lot of those hedge funds and institutions have been buying those deep in the money puts. So what's different about AMC and GME is AMC actually has a much higher short interest. Much higher. Short interest in AMC is really around 35% when you include market makers that are short on this stock. And we talked about this before, but basically market makers being short or buying the stock, aka when there's a gamma squeeze, market makers buy the stock. When there's a reverse gamma squeeze, because hedge funds are doing the opposite of buying calls, they're buying deep in the money puts, forcing market makers to short, you get a reverse gamma squeeze. Now, it's indiscriminate covering or shorting, because based off of what the break evens are on a gamma squeeze or reverse gamma squeeze, hedge funds have to, short stock or buy stock. It has nothing to do with how they feel about the stock, long term, short term, if they're in it for a short squeeze, like that does not exist with market makers. So if AMC does rally off of GME earnings, AMC could actually rally a lot higher than GME based off of about 70 million shares sold short by market makers that would need to be rapidly bought back over $5 per share. So that's something that I'm, definitely more so excited about with AMC stock. Now, if you take a look at the live short interest for AMC stock, you're sitting at 21.67%. Again, short interest really around 35%. If you include the market maker shorts that are on AMC, in which I would absolutely do so in my analysis, you can be conservative. You could say the short interest is 30% or 25%. I think that's a little too conservative. I think 35%, the math, that's what the math supports. That's what I would go with. Could mean a lot of upside if you get a bullish couple days for AMC stock. Now, if you take a look at the cost to borrow fees for AMC, 69.13% cost to borrow average, cost to borrow max at 115.35%, cost to borrow minimum 50.13%. Interactive brokers cost to borrow rates at about 64.5%, with about 80,000 shares that are currently available. Now, the option activity that you have seen recently, and especially on Friday, you've seen 5 orders totaling $5.42 million, positive order value of 7%. Again, with what I have been saying, there is a lot of, kind of that synthetic shorting that you're seeing happening with those deep in the money puts. Now, one of the most bullish factors you've seen recently, and I would say this is the most bullish factor actually that you've seen recently with AMC, is the days to cover has been going higher. What this means is the amount of shares currently sold short is staying about the same or going higher, and the volume's been going lower. It just means that there's less volume. It's harder for shorts to cover on their short positions. Days to cover is the second most important factor of a short squeeze, besides the short interest number, right? Short interest is obviously that's what gives it a short squeeze. You got to have short interest, but it's also the days to cover. If it is so easy to get out of a short position, you don't have to start paying more to buy that back. Well, it's hard to get a short squeeze. And for an example here, if there's just not a lot of shares available and a hedge fund needs to get out of a short position quickly and they're starting to incur losses that they cannot afford to lose, well, if there's just not the volume there to get out of it, they're going to have to start paying a lot more to get out of it as quickly as they need to, right? Kind of like a bunch of people FOMOing into a stock. They just start buying it a lot higher and a lot higher because they want to get into it. Well, same thing is true with shorts when they cover on short positions. If there's not a lot of volume and they have to cover, they're going to have to pay a lot more. They're going to drive the share price up a lot more on a dollar for dollar basis, kind of with a higher days to cover. So very bullish factor with AMC stock. And really over the last 7 days, cost to borrow fee 7 days or days to cover 7 days ago was 6.18. Today it's 7.31. That's up quite a bit from the last week. Now, as far as the Stocko tracker data, you got massive option activity. Again, for June 16th, you got about 6,400 calls in the money, 422,000 calls out the money. In the money puts 339,000, out the money puts at 488,000. So a ton of option activity for June 16th, as well as July 21st. Now, on top of that, you're not going to get a lot of economic data this week. This week's going to be a pretty slow week overall, but at some point today, maybe by the time this video is out, you're going to have news from the OPEC Plus meeting. Now, they've publicly said they were basically going to screw shorts, and if you were speculating on oil, you were going to get destroyed, or to watch out is what they said in their actual words. So that can actually have a big impact on the markets. The price of oil going higher is not good for inflation. That is just a very negative thing for inflation. So if oil does rally, 5 to 10%, if OPEC does cut production, I mean, it could be a pretty red market. It could lead to positive gains in AMC and GME. AMC tends to react positively if the markets do fall. So we'll see what happens there. I'm still waiting for big tech to come down to give you a collateral crisis, but it's just not happening yet. For better or for worse, it's not happening yet. Now, on that note, if you guys do want to come trade with me live in real time, link down below in the description of this video. Come join us on a fresh new trading week with lots of opportunity and lots of potential. Now, let's talk about actual price predictions where these names could go. And I want to start with GME because they're going to have the real catalyst of this week that we can foresee, and that's going to be earnings. Now, bottom line, if GME is profitable and has good earnings and is profitable, I mean, that's the number one factor that really matters. GME stock's probably going to rally 40 to 50% upon their earnings report, just based off of squeezing shorts out of short positions. GME numbers look roughly similar to AMC, about 20% short interest, lower cost of borrow fees, like 10% cost of borrow fees. That doesn't even matter. They got 20% short interest, and they also have a days to cover of about 16. So AMC's at 7 is pretty good. GME's is 16. So it's going to take a lot of time for shorts to get out of short positions. And I think that is one very big bullish factor that GME has going for itself. So I think a 40 to 50% rally just upon another earnings profit is going to be huge, because that shows that last earnings was not just a fluke, and GME might stay profitable. And at that point, you probably don't want to be short on GME. So that would put the stock in between $34.50 and about $37 per share with a 50% rally. I think the follow-up from that would be even higher, and I really think the stock could go back to kind of all-time highs if you do get another profitable quarter, and that leads to a short squeeze and shorts covering on short positions. Now, if GME earnings have kind of my base case scenario in which I expect them to lose some money, but I don't expect them to lose 12 cents per share, call it 4 or 5 cents per share that they actually lose, I think the stock still goes up 15 to 20% from there. Stock could still be $28 to about, call it $30 per share. 25% is possible. Really, 15 to 20% is more likely, in my personal opinion. That puts the stock at about $29.63 per share. So that's kind of my base case scenario here. 15 to 20% move upon earnings. Depending, I mean, the stock could obviously move from there. But this is more or less a prediction of GME earnings, not necessarily an end of the week prediction, because we don't know where these we don't know where GME's earnings are going to come out as. We don't know how the stock's going to react. So up until Wednesday and after Wednesday, call it by Thursday, I think GME, it could be $28 to $30 per share easily upon their earnings. Now, how does that affect AMC stock? Well, the way that I'm kind of looking at this and what we've seen in the past is if GME rallies, call it 25%, AMC rallies 12.5%. About 50% of the move that you see in GME, AMC tends to do. If GME rallies 10%, AMC tends to rally 5%. If GME rallies 50%, AMC stock could rally 25%. And about a 12% move from here would put the stock at $5.12 per share. That's more or less my lower end base case scenario. I kind of expect GME to move, 20, 15, 20, 25% off of decent earnings. That could put the stock of AMC a little over $5 per share. On the best case scenario, if you get positive earnings from GME and the stock goes up 40, 50%, call it AMC goes up 25%, you're going to be at $5.71 per share. Now, the follow-up from that would likely be very aggressive in AMC, likely more aggressive in AMC than GME, based off of those market makers that would have to go out and buy millions and millions of AMC shares that they previously shorted. Now, on a worst-case scenario, if GME does have bad earnings, and we'll still talk about GME's potential worst-case scenario, but on a worst-case scenario for GME, if they have, terrible earnings, the stock could fall 30% from here. That's kind of what I would look for. And they would have to be like terrible earnings. GME would have to lose like double what they're expected to lose. They would have to lose like 25 cents a share. I don't expect that to happen. Not at all. But if that did happen, AMC stock probably drops about 10% the same day. That puts the stock at about $4 per share, give or take. Those are the same levels that you've seen on April 4th when AMC stock dropped 23.5%. So that's kind of my base case, best case, worst case scenario. Like I said with GME, if GME did fall 30% from here in a kind of worst case scenario, that's going to put the stock back to about $17 per share. That'd be a very sizable drop. But again, it's not my base case. My base case is for a 15 to 25% rally, even on a small loss per share. If GME is positive, you could literally see MOASs in AMC as well as GME happen this week, because investors are going to love that. They're going to love that. Shorts, not so much. But retail, hedge funds, institutions, yeah. If they're not short, they're going to want to trade an upside move in GME and AMC, guys. So that is going to do it here in this video. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.